Look how chapter 12 starts. All of a sudden, we're seeing what's going on that most people don't think about. There is a war going on right now, a cosmic battle. It's a galaxy-wide cosmic being demonic warfare raging today. You say, well, where's that? Well, let's look at chapter 12. Now, a great sign. What is a sign? It's something that stands for something else. It's something you see that is pointing and describing and showing you something else. Most people get all caught up with the sign itself. It's what the sign is pointing at. So there was a great sign that appeared in heaven. Now here's one of the parts of Revelation that somebody in school or that lives next door to you that works with you, they go, I read a really weird part of Revelation. Here's one that people think's really weird. And I saw a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. And being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign, here's another sign, appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his head, and his tail drew a third of the stars in. And look at the end of verse 4. She was ready to give birth, and he wanted to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now this is getting a little gross, this sign. What is going on? Well, God, number one, he sends these final signs. You notice there's one in 12:1, 12:3, there's another one in 15:1. All of them are symbolically pointing at something else. God is portraying Satan as a horrible dragon. Another sign appeared, and this great fiery red dragon. The 7 heads speaks of his political power, the horns speak of his might and power, and the diadems is that he has all the, diadems are like what Queen Elizabeth used to wear, and I guess King Charles wore it. It's this encrusted stuff, and it speaks of all of the crowns and their scepters and all this stuff, that's royalty. This is him as the God of this world. Now let's talk about this woman. This woman has her feet on the moon and the sun and the stars, and all of a sudden you're going, what is that? Well, you should know from Sunday school. Do you remember that's Joseph's dream? And Joseph saw that as the nation of Israel, and the stars are the 12 tribes. And so this is a picture of Israel, and her being in labor is Jesus Christ is a descendant through the root of David, and he came through Israel, through the tribe of Judah. But we get a little detail here, because a lot happens in chapter 12. For one thing, we understand that right at this moment today, Satan is free-ranging. He's like the free-range chickens, the ones you pay more for their eggs. They just can run anywhere. He can run anywhere. In chapter 12, he's confined to the earth. And that's when the great tribulation starts. When Satan can't be going everywhere he wants, and he puts all of his focus on killing Christians and killing Jews. But how did he get his angels? Well, with his tail in the sign, he drew a third of the stars. Now, do you remember when the angel came down to open the pit in chapter 9? Do you remember all the way back to yesterday? It said a star fell from heaven. See, in the book of Revelation, often it talks about angels and demons as stars. And part of it is because they glow and they're bright and all that. But it's just a metaphoric, a symbolic term. So he took a third, basically, of the angels of heaven and threw them to the earth. This is the fall of Satan. This is how Satan got a third of all God's angels. They joined him in the rebellion. And the dragon stood before the woman. And by the way, remember, this is what's on the test. When you think about Satan, his origin is described in Isaiah 14 and Ezekiel 28. So basically, what Satan has been doing, his whole ministry, if you want to call it what he's doing, all of his job is, he is opposed to Israel. Why? Because he knows right from the Garden of Eden and from the Cain and Abel conflict and in the birth of Seth, the whole thing, that God has this chosen line that the Messiah, remember the proto-evangelium, the first description of the gospel is in Genesis 3:15, and this is the prophecy about the birth of Christ coming, that Satan shall bruise Christ's heel, but Christ will crush the serpent's head. That's what was said to Eve, and it's the first time the gospel was shared. What is the bruising the heel? Christ's crucifixion. What's the crushing of the head? Jesus defeating Satan. And so Satan knows there's a coming Christ through the Jews, and he's trying to disrupt it. And 9 attempts are recorded in the Bible of Satan. So he's done a lot more, but these are the 9 recorded. He tried to corrupt Adam's line by the infusion of what Jude and Peter talk about, of the angels that kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, and they're in everlasting chains under darkness. And you know what the next part of the verse says? They follow after the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah in like manner. So whatever these corrupting angels did, it involved sexual things. And so it was like an attempt to merge demons and humans so that they were unredeemable. Jesus did not die for angels. He only died for humans, and Satan was trying to corrupt the line. Then he couldn't do that, and God flooded the earth with any of the corrupted ones. So he tried to corrupt Abraham's seed by getting Hagar in there and having the firstborn son not be the son of promise. You heard about that too in the allegory and the Galatians thing 2 days ago. And so that's, Mount Sinai and Jerusalem and all that, corrupting Abraham's seed. Then the famine made the chosen people of promise leave the promised land, and they moved to Egypt. That was Satan's plan, he thought. Now see, God used all these. See, what you mean for evil, God means for good. God knows what's going to happen. He knows all of Satan's plans, and he's orchestrating them to accomplish his purposes. And so in Exodus 1, Pharaoh tries to kill all the firstborn sons to get rid of all the male heirs, to stop this whole Jewish line of ethnicity. And that was Satan's idea. And then Pharaoh's pursuing them all, trying to kill them at the shore, and probably would have killed off, most of the men and just kept the women as slaves. And of course, we know what happened there. And then David's line, if you remember in 2 Samuel 7, how close David's line got to extinction, if you remember, with Athaliah and all that. And then Joseph was afraid to marry Mary. That was Satan. God is not the author of fear. 2 Timothy 1:7. When we're afraid, it's not from God. The most repeated negative prohibition in the Bible is, fear not, fear not. Joseph's fears were not of God. They were from Satan. Herod's attempts, he kills all the firstborn, or all the newborns. That's Satan. Satan is a murderer, and he loves to kill. So that was just Satan's working through Herod. At Nazareth, do you remember when the crowd tried to push Christ off the cliff? That was Satan. He thought, well, we'll just get rid of him. That's the solution. And then twice in Mark 4 and Luke 8, Jesus is sound asleep in the boat, and out of nowhere a storm comes. No, it didn't come out of nowhere. Satan is the god of this world. Satan can induce storms. And the disciples who spent their life fishing on the Sea of Galilee described the storm as no storm they'd ever seen before. It came out of nowhere, and it terrified them. It was so violent. What was that storm? Satan attempting to drown Christ. And then, of course, he thought he won at the cross. And then all that is summarized right here in chapter 12.